Welcome back to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. And the Detroit sports world may still be a little salty about the Detroit Lions losing a playoff game at home. The Detroit Red Wings could be doing a lot better. The Tigers, they gave us a little bit of a thrill ride towards the end of last season, but it was too little too late. And for most fans, bringing up the Pistons, it often brings up conversations of missing the Bad Boys era or the 04 championship team. Whatever it may be with the Pistons, they're thinking about the past. Yet, here we are as fans wondering if the Pistons will make the playoffs this year. The Pistons currently are dancing around an above 500 winning percentage, meaning they have a winning record.
Tia, this makes me so excited.
Warm. Maybe I got to take my Snuggie off. I'm warm.
Yes, we're getting hot in here. It's reminding me, as I was telling you earlier, I was living in Denver when the Nuggets recently won the championship, and I could only be half excited for that win. It had me just longing for the days of
I know it's so
the
sad.
Pistons heydays. As we get closer to the NBA All-Star break on Valentine's weekend, the Pistons are now 7th in the East. That's a far cry from their previous two seasons. The team ended the 2022 season at 17-65, and the following season at 14-68. They'd really reached the bottom, so there wasn't anywhere else to go but up. Joining us now, we have Detroit Free Press Pistons beat writer Omari Sankofa II here. Omari is also the co-host of the Pistons Pulse podcast. Omari, welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you for having me. I believe it's my first time here with them having a winning record, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I was going to say it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a special moment. And so first we got to talk about the Cade Cunningham effect. He's shooting at 45% and averaging 25 points a game. Cade was also named an All-Star reserve, and he shot 40 points right after that announcement. And his assists, playing the Bulls yesterday, I loved watching him set up Jalen Duren for some alley-oops. Talk about this superstar guard living up to the hype.
Yeah, it's year 4 for Cade, and it took him a minute to get here. Obviously, as you mentioned, 14 wins last season. Year before that, he missed most of the year with a shin injury, and they won 17 games. And he's come out this season, and he's looking like the number one pick. He's playing like the player that they wanted him to be when they took him a few years ago. Like you mentioned, he's having a great season, averaging about 25 points, 9.5 assists. He's putting up 40 balls, and I think he had 15 assists last night. And he had the type of season that was like a pretty obvious all-star season. Pistons have 25 wins, which since I've been covering the team for like the last 5 years, I think their highest was 23. So they've already surpassed that with we haven't even gotten the all-star break yet. And, yeah, I mean, it all starts with Cade. He's been the leader of this thing. He's been the one that, I mean, he probably has the ball more than all, but maybe 3 or 4 NBA players. They've been riding him pretty hard, and he's been coming through for them. So it's been big. It's been fun to watch, and I know it's been good for them to finally see some momentum after all this.
You said you've been covering the Pistons for 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that for you personally, there's been a morale boost. And perhaps it's been a little bit more fun to cover the Pistons in this moment.
I would say the games are more fun. Yeah. Like I always talk about last season as like when you see something that's not supposed to happen, like you're watching NASCAR and you see like a car crash, or like you're watching like The Office, or like something awkward happens and it's like, this is terrible, but also like,
yeah, they're just getting killed.
But like last season was like the games were not fun. I think just from a reporting standpoint, where something goes that bad, like you have no shortage of things to write about. So, it wasn't like a miserable season for me. It was just more so like, hey, I didn't think I'd be covering this type of season. But I was thinking about it the other day, like usually around this time of year, we're deep into draft coverage and like looking past the season with like 30 games left, and we haven't had one draft discussion or anything. It's just been full go playoffs, winning games. So that's been fun. It's just the fact that this season has kind of unfolded in like an opposite way, where the games still matter in February and March, and you're looking at some postseason activity. So I've never had a season like this. So I say it's been fun just covering basketball, but the actual basketball matters, and it's not just all the off the floor drama that people are mostly interested in.
to stay in the present moment and be able to talk about the plays that we're seeing, really intricate plays that are working. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about Cade Cunningham and the growth that he's had, the Pistons remain one of the youngest teams in the league. So what kind of growth have you seen from some of the other younger players?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've had a lot of guys that they've added with the lottery over the years. But you mentioned Jalen Duren. I think especially over the last few weeks, he's been really, really good for them. Just as a double-double threat, a lob threat. Like him and Cade are probably connecting on at least 3 alley-oops every single night at this point, and the chemistry is really locked in between them. Jaden Ivey got hurt, obviously, on New Year's with the broken fibula, but he was playing really well. He was having a career-best season. Sar Thompson, since he's been back from blood clots, he's been great. Still doing what he did last season as a rebounder and defender and just doing all this ball stuff for them. So they've got a lot of young guys. They've got guys who have stepped up and are playing well for them. Isaiah Stewart, he's been one of the top defensive bigs coming off of the bench. So
you brought him up. So
Tia's gonna have something to say to you about him.
You brought him up, so we have to bring. No, go. I'm just gonna say, he's becoming the boogeyman of the NBA. Yeah. He's really, people see him coming and they're just like, you got it, big dog. So I'm wondering this mentality that Beef Stew has going on. What do you think is going on with Isaiah Stewart and his personality and what he brings to the Pistons?
Yeah, I think he's just a Pistons big man. You look at, Rasheed Wallace, he was always among the tech leaders, and then you have, of course, Rick Mahorn and all those guys who were the enforcers. And, I think Stu just kind of comes from the same boat. He's all about the team. If people are coming after his guys, he's going to come in and make it clear, like that needs to stop. Very much an enforcer type. Probably needs to dial it down a little bit, only because he's at six flagrant fouls this season, and once you get to a certain point, you start to look at suspensions every time you get another one. So there's probably a line you can find a little bit, but Stu's an emotional leader for this team. They love him. After the game a couple nights ago, when Cade scored 40 in the locker room after, they because he was suspended for the game, they FaceTimed him, and they've been giving out this championship belt to guys who performed the best in the game. He had the belt from the last game, so he's on FaceTime with the belt, giving the belt off to the next guy, and that's just kind of where they're at, right? The head coach JB Bickerstaff and Cade are free Stu after the game because he got suspended. His personality messes with this group. He definitely brings fire, and they love him. They love him.
And that's a perfect transition or segue to JB Bickerstaff. How has the team changed or improved under his leadership? He seems to be really resonating with these players and really helping them gel together on the court.
Yeah, I think he's come in, and just his spirit and his energy and his passion has really invigorated the franchise, I think. He's the type of coach that he's going to argue with the refs on your behalf from opening tip until the game ends. He's always going to have your back. I don't think guys are going into any games wondering if their coach is going to have their back, or if he's going to have the fire that they need to win. JB's just been off fire since he came in. I think he's really best with the personality of his group. I think fans are really kind of rallying around just his passion in the press conferences, and the stuff he's saying to refs when he's on the floor when he disagrees with calls and whatnot. I think the franchise really needed a coach to come in just with that type of energy and passion, and that's what he does, and that's what he's done. And you see it rub off. I mean, look at the record. You look at how good the vibes of the team are right now. A lot of that starts with the head coach for sure.
I love it. And, let's talk about the upcoming NBA trade deadline, which is February 6th. For me, the elephant in the room was Luka and that whole bomb that dropped over the weekend. But just the trade deadline, you just talked about a little bit with the Detroit Pistons. It's not really in the conversation for them right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, they've been playing pretty well. I think currently they are, the 7th seed in the East, and you got the trade deadline coming up this week, and they're probably looking at more so let's just try to keep what we have going right now, right? But yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the Bulls are the 10th seed, and that's the cutoff for the play-in tournament, and the Pistons already have 8 more wins than them, and then they play them twice before All-Star weekend, so they have a chance essentially to pretty much more or less clinch a postseason berth before they go to All-Star weekend. So you could have a situation where Cade is going into the All-Star game, and it's his first berth, and the Pistons already pretty much have at least a play-in game locked in with 2 months to go. So Like, that's how big of a turnaround it's been from last
That's
season.
a crazy turnaround.
Yeah.
They got to be the most improved team in the NBA.
They are.
Oh,
Yeah.
my Lanta. And just thinking about the Pistons in general, thinking about everything that we've been seeing, watching Kay come up, watching Beef Stew, watching them all gel really well together. Once again, they're a really young team. So just watching it kind of click in a way has been really nice to see. But then as well, from your perspective, like Robin asked you earlier, you've been covering it. It's been 5 years. You've been watching not great things, like you said. Sometimes you just thought you shouldn't be looking at some of the stuff you were seeing. So, like, this is
cringeworthy,
right? This is forbidden. I shouldn't
Turn
be
this
here.
off.
Yep, I shouldn't be here. I got to get out of here. So, what else, or what can, or what's going to stop them, or what's going to keep them going? What's going to really put the Pistons into the playoffs this year, but get them going deep in the playoffs? If they can go deep in the playoffs, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it's just keeping what they have currently going. Of course, they've surpassed expectations after last season. You have nowhere to go but up, obviously. Like, it couldn't have gotten worse. But for them to already be 11 games better with what they've played, like 49 games, so you've still got like 33, something like that remaining. They're well ahead of expectations. This is probably, had last season not happened, this is probably where you expect them to be now, like removing last season. So they kind of went from the bottom and then kind of skipped out that awkward middle step and got back to where they should have been to begin with. So I think this week would be interesting. It's the trade deadline, and now that they've gotten like to level, basically, I know like a lot of fans want to see them kind of make that next move and get another star in and try to make a playoff push. I don't think they're there yet. Like, I think they're still at that stage of like, we just got here, so let's not try to mix it all up. Like, the guys have excellent chemistry and the vibes are pretty phenomenal, so let's try to keep this going. They'll probably look at more marginal moves to improve the roster a bit, or maybe get some assets in, but beyond that, like, I think they'll continue to just stick with Cade, stick with the guys they got, keep the good vibes going, and they've overachieved, so you might as well just see how long you can continue to overachieve, right? So I think that's where they're at right now, and they're going to see where this thing can go.
Throw it at the wall, hope it sticks. But in 30 seconds or less, Tom Gore has recently announced he is putting a bid in to bring in the WNBA, bringing that team back. We had to shock a championship caliber team. What do you make of this announcement? Do you see it moving?
Yeah, so that was kind of in the works for a bit. Obviously, the WNBA has had a resurgence in the last 2 years with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and everything that's happened there. And the Shock were like the most popular NBA team in their day before they left for Tulsa. So, they have a super team of investors. You've got the Ford family involved. You've got a lot of local business leaders, civic leaders, finance leaders, and they're going to try to bring this thing back. So we'll see how it goes. They're not the only team making a bid, but Detroit has a strong basketball legacy. They have a women's basketball legacy, and the hope is that they could put it together and keep this thing going and bring the Shock back.
I'm looking forward to that. Very looking forward to that. Omari Sankofa II is the Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. He is also the co-host of the Pistons Pulse podcast. Omari, we will talk to you soon on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
Up at 11. Homeschooling is on the rise across the country. We'll talk about why that is, and we want your thoughts. Would you homeschool your kids? The number is 313-577-1019. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. And this is The Metro. Stay with us.